Silent tales remain unspoken. My wife chuckled and mentioned, "He's quite easy to manage in every aspect." I remained silent and proceeded with my action. Subsequently, her laughter ceased. The event unfolded within our living room among the same individuals who had frequented for years. Coats on chair backs, beverages transferred hand to hand, the subtle hum of professional chatter gradually transforming into jokes. I stood by the window, dealing with a contractor regarding a postponed permit, my voice calm, my thoughts already arranged in my mind. Upon concluding the call, there was a brief moment of silence in the room. It was during this pause that she spoke, grinning, her gaze fixed on him, not me. The creative director chuckled first, a habit he had. He slouched back, projecting an air of dominance as if anticipating the humor before it surfaced. She observed his response keenly, then added a playful hand gesture she typically used at home to tease me. He responded, following her cue without error. They questioned their duration of acquaintance. She dismissed it casually, stating they had a long history, just industry friends, nothing extraordinary. He provided anecdotes about her quirks, her mannerisms, the unique way she emphasized certain phrases, details I'd never seen her disclose publicly. The ambience remained jovial, but the banter felt gentler with each pass, as though rehearsed. At that point, I silently decided to withdraw from the exchange. No more drinks, no new subjects. No further interactions. I glanced at my watch, collected my notes, and retreated. The dialogue continued without me, flowing more effortlessly than before. That was the instant everything altered, although no one verbally acknowledged it. The following morning resumed as usual, except I wasn't part of it. She moved about the apartment automatically, phone already in her grip, thumb swiping before her feet touched the floor. I sat at the table with my laptop active, scrutinizing a revised schedule for an urban construction project, figures finalized, contingencies planned. She avoided the screen. She ignored the call from the previous night's discussion. She prepared coffee, leaned on the counter, and swiftly typed a message with a half grin that excluded me. When she eventually spoke, it was about logistics, a client dinner scheduled for later in the week, the same bunch, familiar faces. She delivered it carelessly, as if already resolved. I nodded, saved my document, and shut the laptop without responding. The silence lingered longer than necessary. She looked up, expecting me to fill the void, to confirm plans, to manage the details as usual. I didn't. By midday, messages started piling up about the dinner, timings, who was bringing what. I stayed clear of the discussion. I returned to work, met with a supplier, approved revised expenses without listing our location as default. By late afternoon, she realized. She inquired if I had seen the messages. I mentioned having appointments and left. In the evening, she appeared stage-ready, hurrying, frequently glancing at mirrors and readjusting inconsequential details. The creative director's name illuminated her phone screen, prompting a swift smile and instant response. I collected my coat, retrieved my keys, and walked past her without providing an explanation of my destination. She didn't try to halt me. Regardless, the plans continued unabated. By midweek, the system adapted in my absence. Calendar invitations no longer featured my name as the default host, and the group chat carried on, but questions replaced presumptions and decisions. I maintained distance. I arrived early for work, departed late, and kept my phone screen down. Upon returning home, I utilized the spare room to scrutinize bids and timetables, doors closed, calls concise and restricted. She adapted swiftly. She affirmed plans excessively, echoing details within the room as if I might eavesdrop and intervene. She transmitted emails unnecessary for forwarding. She inquired about the suitability of the location for Friday, followed by filling the void with her words when I remained silent. By Thursday evening, she was communicating directly with him. His name began appearing where mine previously stood. Friday arrived with activity. Individuals flowed in successive groups, voices blending, coats discarded without guidance. I maintained a position off to the side, visible yet detached, answering a few courteous queries about work before withdrawing again. She moved effortlessly through the room, phone in hand, laughing excessively, glancing at him before addressing others. He synchronized with her pace, concluding conversations, steering discussions, and filling silences that were once mine. In one instance, someone asked about parking arrangements. She hesitated to respond, then deferred. He stepped up seamlessly, already aware of the spots to avoid and who required passes. She concurred, showing signs of relief. Drinks dwindled. No eyes met mine. He took charge. The dynamics changed. Attendees trailed him obliviously. She moved nearer to him as he narrated, their rhythm in sync. I departed prematurely, neither a warning nor an explanation, just my coat and keys abandoned. No one inquired about my destination. When I inspected my phone subsequently, there were images from the event. I was absent from all of them. The following day displayed the initial discernible fracture. It manifested unexpectedly in the afternoon, during an untimely return from a field trip. The apartment wasn't vacant. Her laptop was positioned on the dining table, the screen aglow, messages trickling in one after another. I refrained from interacting with it. I navigated past, deposited my bag, and ventured to the bedroom to alter my attire. Dialogues emanated from the living room a short while later. She was engaged in a conversation, wandering, employing that gentler tone she typically avoided during home-based work discussions. The demeanor wasn't agitated. It was composed, commonplace. Her laughter echoed the same way it had the previous evening, easily and assuredly, as if she anticipated the reply. I slipped into the corridor. She slightly adjusted her position, diverting the phone and softening her speech while continuing the call. A notification appeared on her tablet for presentations, bearing his name without any subject line. A brief message with a private phrase she usually reserved for me was shown. It seemed insignificant to others. I continued my tasks. I picked up a folder from the shelf, reviewed a delivery schedule, and exited the room again. Later, she pretended nothing unusual had transpired. She discussed impending deadlines, joked about a shared acquaintance, retold a story I'd heard twice. When I remained silent, she filled the void more rapidly with each passing moment. That night, she proposed another gathering involving the same circle and setting. She presented it as casual, assuming the event was already decided. I didn't affirm. I didn't reject. I opened my computer, dispatched a solitary email modifying a regular approval process, and closed it. Her phone vibrated almost instantaneously. She inspected it, frowns, and gazes at me as if seeking an explanation. I grab my keys and exit once more, allowing the door to shut automatically. The error occurred on the night she attempted to secure everything once more. She acted swiftly that evening, confirming, rescheduling, responding for both of us without delay. The apartment felt occupied again, yet the atmosphere was altered. Guests hesitated at the entrance, unsure where to position themselves, unsure whom to address first. I remained near the border, attending to a call concerning revised labor expenses, my tone calm, my thoughts preoccupied. She worked the crowd more vigorously than typical. She laughed louder, maintained contact longer, recited jokes that had already been told. Each time, she glanced at his face before returning her attention to the gathering. He stayed nearby, close enough for them to share reactions without uttering a word. When questioned about a project delay she had previously mentioned, she hesitated, then stopped speaking. He completed her sentence, mirroring her wording perfectly. She smiled and let him continue. Somewhere during the evening, she took action. She suggested a shift in the upcoming gathering venue, transferring it from our home to a client space he had access to. It seemed like a resolution, a form of relief. Nods filled the room, no one looked towards me. I remained silent, did not voice my objections. I extracted my phone, forwarded a document, and sent a short message removing my name from an ongoing expense approval linked to her accounts. Her device vibrated shortly after. She glanced at it, furrowed her brow, then dismissed it with a joke to maintain the lively pace. He leaned towards her, whispering something intended only for her ears. She agreed, already entrusting him to manage the situation. The night unfolded, but the framework dissolved. I departed before all guests left. No words of farewell, no reasons given. By the time the door shut behind me, the decision had circulated throughout the room. I was no longer part of that decision. The following gathering took place on a Thursday evening, at a new location but with the same group of people. He had obtained a stylish venue for this event through his job, characterized by sleek lines and dim lighting that encouraged hushed conversations. I arrived punctually, neither too early nor too late. She was already present, seemingly at home in the room, warmly greeting attendees and laughing appropriately. He stood beside her, managing queries, steering discussions, taking care of details before they were even requested. I chose a seat towards the back and remained there. From this vantage point, the dynamic was evident. She spoke first, then glanced at him for approval or minor adjustments to her narrative. Whenever someone directly addressed me, she responded first. When inquiries were made about future arrangements, he provided them confidently, complete with dates and logistics. She did not contradict him. It wasn't necessary. Around halfway through the event, someone remarked on how smoothly they worked together. She smiled and confirmed their partnership always flowed naturally like that. He mentioned that she preferred late arrivals for check-ins and early departures for meetings, echoing the same planning style she employed at home for our weeks, which caused a few people to glance over. The laughter followed a moment too slowly. I rose to exit. This time she observed, She halted her speech, watched me traverse the room, waited for me to speak up. I remained silent. I walked between them both, nodded at a client I recognized, and stepped out through the door. In my wake, the room seemed unsure before continuing without my presence. By the time I reached the street, my phone vibrated with queries about my well-being. I declined to respond. Within that room, the change was palpable. They had taken my spot. By the weekend, the access was revoked without discussion. The apartment remained still but not vacant. Her schedule flourished elsewhere. Meetings extended late into the night, and dinners merged with work matters. She ceased inquiring about my whereabouts and started informing me of her unavailability instead. Remarks were posted on the communal calendar, blocks of time marked off under vague titles that discouraged inquiries. I ceased filling in the blanks. Bills mysteriously got paid without discussion. Groceries showed up uncoordinated. When something was broken, it remained unfixed. She became aware of this gradually through subtle signs. One evening, she stood in the hallway, phone clutched to her ear, repeating herself to someone on the other end before hanging up and gazing around as if the room had transformed. She gathered her belongings and left once more. The group adjusted with her. Invitations ceased reaching me directly. Instead, they arrived indirectly through her, devoid of context. I chose not to reply. Images emerged online from dinners I hadn't attended. He was present in every one of them. Closer in posture, his hand placed where mine once comfortably settled. She appeared at ease, secure, effortlessly adapting to a new configuration. One night, she returned home late carrying a stack of folders and set them on the table, spreading them out as if anticipating assistance. She waited. I remained stationary, completing a document, then dispatched it. She collected the files silently and left them in another room. By then, the space was no longer a stage. It became merely a location. Decisions took place elsewhere. Assistance redirected. Actions once instinctive now required queries, and not every query yielded results. The machinery continued to operate. It merely excluded me. The concluding phase occurred during an unwanted dinner gathering. Familiar faces in the same circle, but with altered moods. I intentionally arrived late. The room had already established a rhythm that didn't accommodate my arrival. Dialogues flowed seamlessly without interruptions. Laughter echoed naturally. No one seemed to acknowledge my entry. She stood near the center, beverage in hand, calm. He was close enough for their shoulders to touch as they turned. When someone directed a question towards her, he responded initially. When someone spoke to him, she provided the context. They were unaware of their actions. The inescapable moment unfolded as a pair sitting at the table shared a significant gaze. Another attendee leaned back, focusing more on observing them than listening. The humor subsided, becoming spare and cautious. Someone mentioned their long-standing friendship, to which she began enumerating years. He swiftly amended her timeline without hesitation. She smiled approvingly and accepted it, eliciting no laughter this time. I remained silent, refraining from interjection or redirection. When the check arrived, he instinctively grabbed it. She conceded without objection. A momentary hush followed, though not for long. Several attendees glanced at me, then away, as if they'd just become aware of something that had been apparent all along. Upon standing to depart, I was met with an unexpected stillness from the table. She looked up, seemingly having forgotten my presence. I merely nodded once and exited without a word, prompting no one to follow. Behind me, the dialogue resumed, slower and more somber. The roles had already been realigned, and that evening only served to expose it. The conclusion didn't coincide with the scene. The following day, under broad sunlight, I organized necessary items while she was engaged in a call elsewhere. Her voice was soft, her pacing persistent, mirroring the same inflection she used with him. I navigated our apartment without seeking approval, sorting clothes, consolidating papers into a file, disconnecting devices that belonged to me. The entrance remained ajar. She didn't seem to notice until I placed the file on the hallway table. She exited her call, phone in hand. The dialogue halted upon noticing the boxes. She inquired about my actions, seemingly hoping that the question would alter the outcome if asked casually. I remained silent. I glanced at my watch, readjusted my coat, and continued moving. Her phone vibrated again, signaling his name. She looked at it, then returned her gaze to me, searching for a catalyst to disrupt the moment. However, nothing did. She trailed behind me to the door, speaking more quickly now, enumerating tasks that required attention, matters we hadn't discussed, strategies presuming my continued presence. I brought out the final box, put it down, and locked my car. From the sidewalk, I saw her through the window, still conversing, already readying to answer the phone as it rang again. On that same day, word spread among the group without any clarifications, just updates, new meetings arranged, new contacts established. His name replaced mine where it previously was. No one questioned what transpired. They didn't have to. The framework had already shifted. All anyone did was adapt to it. A week later, the last connection broke silently. I signed a lease for a temporary place near one of my projects. Keys were handed over across a tidy countertop. Documents slid neatly into a folder with my name spelled correctly. I redirected deposits, altered mailing addresses, and changed emergency contacts before midday. By the afternoon, my old address was no longer visible on my forms. She unexpectedly appeared that night without fuss or tears, merely swift. Standing in the entrance of the fresh locale, she seemed to search for something mislaid while surveying the room. She touched upon timing, expressing concerns that things progressed too swiftly, causing perplexity among all parties involved. Her phone chirped twice as she conversed. She neither answered nor silenced it. I concluded packing a container and deposited it in the cupboard. She trailed behind, still talking, subtly altering her position to remain ahead of me. She brought up his proposition to alleviate the situation, also mentioning how the collective was pondering the new norm. I retrieved my coat and moved past her. She paused mid-speech. Externally, I placed the final box in the vehicle and shut the trunk. She remained on the sidewalk, arms folded now, anticipating a decisive moment. I climbed into the driver's seat, ignited the engine, and departed. In the rearview mirror, she was already examining her phone. At a later point, images were posted from another gathering. The group, same faces, same cheerfulness, but with altered positions. I was not identified in the photographs. The system ignored my existence. It didn't pause to recognize the shift. By the time night fell, there was no reversing the act. The spot I once inhabited had already been taken over before I vacated it. All that was left behind was an empty void, and no one attempted to return. If you're still present, thank you. Now it's your turn. Post your thoughts below. Subscribe. More unspoken tales are coming up next.